Welcome to the Lubbock or Leave It podcast, a recruiting podcast on Red Raider Sports. I am Matt Clare, joined always by my co-host Ben Golan. We are brought to you by Carnley Properties. Carnley Properties is based in the greater Austin metro area. Two things, they're Red Raiders and they are Red Raider Sports folks. So those are two great reasons if you're in that area to use them. But above and beyond all of that, any real estate needs, Clayton Carnley and his team will have you covered. They're experts at what they do. And again, they're great friends of the pod and the site both. So we'll put Clayton Carnley's info. You can contact him directly. You can contact his team. Again, any type of real estate in the Austin metro area, and they will have you covered. I wanted to give another quick shout out, and we'll mention them on the board, but one of my best friends, Clayton Summerlin, he represents Energy Renovation Center, and what they do is they look at your electric bill. They give you options on renewals. They give you options on solar. He's been doing this. We graduated together from tech. He's been doing this for years. So I would say if Ben's considered a recruiting expert, and he's an energy expert, and what he's offered up to the board as a sponsor is a free assessment, free Q&A. So again, I'll shout out Clayton Summerlin, Texas Tech on the boards, Tech spelt with a 3 instead of an E. Pretty great username. But Clayton and his team will get you guys hooked up if you're looking into that sort of thing. Right now, though, Ben, it's the we're in the first week of July. Today I was outside and it was 107 degrees. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's pretty hot. I actually went on a walk at like 7 o'clock. It wasn't too bad, but no,
Yeah.
107 degrees. It's pretty miserable. How are you, man?
Been good, man. Been really busy. I had somebody ask if I was dead on the website. So that's a new high for me, new low, whatever you want to call it. But busy with job number one and the 3 kids. But love getting here on the podcast, talking recruiting. There's so much to talk about. We can go back a little bit ways, but I know you've done a good job of recording a few of these podcasts. What I want to dive into, Ben, is there's been 5 commitments over the past 2.5 weeks. Certainly, you lose a couple guys. I think that's been well discussed, well covered, even talked about on here for a long time with Calvin Simpson Hunt, kind of his situation, what was going on there. It was clearly a difficult decision for the young man. And then LJ Martin, not out of left field, I wouldn't say, but his commitment lasted 3-4 weeks maybe. So, couple gotchas there, but I mean, you turn around and you add 5 new recruits and in that same time frame. So I don't know if it takes the sting away per se, Ben, but it kind of makes you quickly forget about that and focus on some of these newer guys.
Yeah, a lot of happenings in the recruiting world, a lot of happenings in realignment and just everything. It's just been a pretty busy couple of weeks, and here we are in the dead period. So I believe the last week of July is another open period. So we'll see if the coaches have any visitors. But yeah, we just wanted to get on here and talk about some of these commits, and then just what else is left still out there.
I have a what grinds my gear left turn here. You mentioned a lot going on in the recruiting world. I mean, it was just commits everywhere over this past holiday weekend. And, I see all these guys that are national recruit. You should never commit on a holiday. Shut up. Right. Like, I mean, who are you? You weren't with them in the gym. You weren't with them earning these offers. They can commit whenever day they want, whatever time they want. Thanks for your tweet. Shut up. Go back to the pool, the grill, whatever else. I mean, it's just so dumb. So anyway, you're not that important. And thank you for your opinion. That's all I thought about that. I was just like, what, cool. I think it's cool. All these kids are committing. It's the middle of July. This is what happens. So anyway, commit whenever you want to, kids, if you're watching the Lubbock or Leave It podcast. I think Ben agrees, right, Ben?
That's right.
So some kids that have recently committed, I'm going to go down the list here, and we're just going to kind of not rapid fire, but we're going to go one by one, talk about them a little bit. You've talked to some, I've talked to some. So we've both talked to a few of them. So we're just going to chime in here. But first, a few weeks ago, Miguel, I would say probably one of the more unique commitments was Miguel Dingle Jr., a linebacker out of South Carolina. Ben, I know you had a chance to talk to Miguel and his dad. about, the whole recruiting process and the visit and commitment. So if you don't mind, give us a little background on Dingle Jr.
Yeah, you mentioned his dad, Mike, was an NFL guy, NFL draft pick by the Bengals. Miguel Dingle Jr. was an interesting story. I think he was barely even recruited at all. Ended up winning a South Carolina track, 110-meter hurdles, which got him his first offer from Charlotte. Obviously, as we now know, Texas Tech is huge on athletic traits and just getting the best athletes. And so he popped up on the radar. They offered him. And then at the time, it was him, Justin Horn, first one to take the spot. Dingle Jr. visited and he committed after the visit. But, just a very, again, athletic, 110-meter hurdles, 10.92, 100 meters, long jumper. He was honorable mention all states in South Carolina and, for the 5A division. So, again, maybe not the biggest offer list or the highest ranking, but the type of guy that you take, you teach him how to play in your defense and you just bet on the athletic traits. I think for him, it was, Josh Bookbinder, the linebackers coach, and just James Blanchard. And he just mentioned how, every school has the facilities and every school has this and that, but he just mentioned the coaches and how big of a difference they made, in his decision. Because I don't think he wanted to shut things down this early, but I think once he got on campus, he just saw how the team is bought in and how the coaches get along and how the players get along. And he just, wanted to be part of the class.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm going to paraphrase here, but ultimately, when I talked to Sam Kahn a few weeks ago and he recapped his story and interview with Coach Blanchard and some of the other coaches, I mean, you can't teach that state championship, state hurdle. You can't teach that athleticism or that track time or whatever it is, but you can get a kid who has that NFL pedigree on top of that, get them into the strength and conditioning program, get them into the defense and really coach them up on how to play football. But again, I think, look, it doesn't matter if the kid's from Dallas, doesn't matter if a kid's from Houston. It really doesn't matter if they're from South Carolina. The bottom line is you have to trust your evals and you have to develop. And I think if like the A&Ms and the Texas and the OUs of the world can go to the East Coast, New Jersey, California, and you look at what's going on in college football, which we could probably talk about for a whole nother hour, it is not this regionalized thing anymore. I think a lot of kids, it really depends on what their values are, right? Where do they see themselves, or maybe what options do they have at that moment? Do they want to stay closer to home, or do they see this option, maybe that Dingle Jr. and his dad saw, where, hey, these coaches believe in me. They see what I see that maybe some of these other programs aren't seeing. And at this point in the calendar year, we're talking it's July 5th. A lot of these guys want to make a decision with signing day in December, with year-round training, multi-sport athletes, all these things. They're busy. They want to chill too. And so I don't know. I just think that really checked a lot of those boxes in terms of proving who these coaches are, and that Blanchard's got that green light, and that they're going to trust their evals. Period. Right. I mean, that's just the approach that they're going to take. And to me, I like that. If everyone had a class full of 4-stars, then obviously this would be a different conversation. But to have all these highly rated guys, and then to add some of these guys that clearly you turned over. I mean, to me, we're going to talk about a couple other guys here that committed that you turn on the tape and you see it. And so again, for you and I, we're sort of armchair evaluators. And we cover this stuff and we're into it, but I think it takes a lot of gumption, and it takes a lot of, trust in that process to go across the country and take a chance on a kid whose only offer right now is from Charlotte.
Yeah. And, a couple more things. So 2 years in a row, last year you took BJ Elson from Alabama. So, 2 years in a row, getting a linebacker out of SEC country who maybe, some of these other, bigger programs, didn't go after for whatever reason, but Tech clearly believes in. Since, this is a stat that I found interesting, since 1985, there have been 11 football players that have been at least 6'1", 200 pounds, and ran under 14 in the 110-meter hurdles. 9 of the 11 went to the NFL. So I believe it's 9 now. I believe it's now 12 with Dingle. I think that that stat was about Horn, but interesting nonetheless. And then the final thing on Dingle, I think a day or two after he committed, he made a diving interception to win his high school, the South Carolina 7-on-7 state
That's right.
championship. And I posted that on Red Raider Sports Twitter. So great play and, good publicity for him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, that's why I say you turn on the tape, it pops. And I think they want to get all the athleticism, all the speed that they can. And look, let's face it, 6'2", 215 is, that's a junior going into his senior year. And his dad was an NFL draft pick. I think he's going to add some pounds once he gets in the program. So, again, a lot to like there. And look, we just talked about Simpson Hunt. We just talked about LJ Martin. I mean, we might have said the same things about them many months ago, and now they're committed to Stanford and Ohio State. I mean, Dingle Jr.'s definitely had the interest, right? He's been on the visits there on the East Coast. So nothing's over till it's over, and the coaches will work hard to keep him in the fold. But the next guy is another guy that you were pretty familiar with throughout the process, Ben. Marquez Macho Stevenson, defensive back out of Shreveport, Louisiana, 6'2", 170, a 3-star prospect. I don't have all the offers and whatnot pulled up, but what I'm mostly interested in is when or why he got the nickname Macho. And if you don't know, I'm going to have to reach out and find out here pretty soon.
Yeah, I don't know why he got the nickname Macho. I do know why Texas Tech is recruiting him, and that's, again, he's probably the fastest, fastest or second fastest player in Louisiana. He won the 400 meter. He was second to his teammate Cross Johnson in the 100, who is a 2024 receiver who Tech offered also. So keep an eye on him next year. But so he played. An interesting thing about Macho is he plays receiver. And all of his huddle, it's all on offense. But Texas Tech is taking him as a cornerback. And so, do the coaches, as he played in the secondary, I believe he has. I don't have access to that tape. And so I'm interested in seeing what that looks like. But that's another James Blanchard find and relationship. And he visited in April for spring practice, came back for his official visit. And, at the end of the day, I just think Tech was recruiting him the hardest and, wanted him as part of the class, especially, they would have loved to have him and Calvin Simpson Hunt, but here you have Macho now, and we'll go try to find another corner. But, again, all district player, track star. So, you develop that and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, 6'2", 170, another long kid. And, I know we've mentioned Simpson Hunt a couple times, but that's kind of the point on what I said off the top is, it'd be one thing in the past, I've covered a lot of recruiting classes. It'd be one thing to lose commits and then wait, another month or so to see what happens next. I mean, that's what makes them kind of different to me. I know it kind of coincided with the official visits, but they just don't miss a beat, man. They keep going, they keep moving forward. And I think you touched on a lot of things with me, Stevenson, even back when they first offered him. I mean, that was just another early eval kid that just really the speed pops on tape. And when you talk about Louisiana and you talk about that area, you know that he's going to go up against some quality competition, right? So, I mean, might as well be East Texas in Shreveport. So I'm interested. You and I were texting earlier about taking that road trip. So I think we're definitely going to make that happen this fall. And then the more we learn about Macho and his background, we'll continue to share. But again, out of all these, I might have liked that one the most, just from an under the radar potential type of pickup, even though, 5'6", 3-star is very respectful. But just, you look at the quality of offers, you look at everything you mentioned from an athletic standpoint. And I just think it's overall impressive, to land a kid like that. And in the past, landing that kid out of Louisiana was not very easy. It would have been a question about, can you hold on to him, or, who else is he going to visit and stuff like that. But, the thing you touched on that I'll echo is just the relationship and how hard they're recruiting him. And I just don't expect that to stop, now that he's committed.
And he's gonna do both track and field and football at Tech. That's noteworthy. And also the fact that LSU offered him a track scholarship the day after he committed. And he's a huge track guy, and we all know what a LSU offer means to Louisiana recruits. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the next guy we're going to talk about, we really go back. I mean, we started with linebacker. We went to defensive back. Now we're up to the front of the line here on defense. Been Braylon Rigsby listed at defensive tackle, Woodville, Texas, 6'3", 285, another 3-star, another 5.6. And this was a kid that was unranked, maybe didn't have a lot of the P5 bigger offers, or maybe a profile that popped at the time. But then again, you did, I guess, we do this for RedRaidersports.com, so I should remind you, Ben did a GIF, however you explain that or say that, analysis of Mr. Rigsby, that really highlights some of the plays from his tape and talks about him a little bit more as a player, and a separate piece that really broke down all these guys and some of that info. So definitely check out the site. Check out those links from Ben. We'll try to link those here on the video as well. But specifically with Rigsby, Ben, you spent a lot of time reviewing his tape, kind of really going over who he is as a player. Before we get into that, you also have talked to him a little bit. What was the conversation when he got that tech offer, or when all this kind of came together? Because it seemed like it came together pretty quick with getting in touch with the coaches, getting on campus, getting the offer, right, and going from there.
Yeah, so Woodville, Texas, that's 409. That's James Blanchard. That's his territory. And, he was on him before he had a single offer. I think he didn't offer until recently, but Tech's been recruiting him for a while now, or he's been on the radar. And so, like you said, 6'3", 285. I think what's very impressive is 34-inch arms and 82-inch wingspan. You go look at the NFL Combine, that puts him against anybody who was at the most recent Combine, just as far as body type and what he can do athletically. So, district defensive lineman of the year. You got him committed, and then the next day Kansas State offered, or later that day actually. And so I just thought that was interesting. But again, a James Blanchard relationship, and I think it's a pretty good get here. You look at his highlights; he's really explosive. He gets after it, so you can have enough quality pass rushers and defensive linemen.
Yeah, I will not pretend to know a whole lot about Woodville, the area, the competition, all that other good stuff. But, I love what I hear in terms of that little tidbit about the NFL Combine. But I cannot tell you guys enough. Go check out the GIF analysis. Go look at some of those plays, because he's absolutely exploding the O-line and just ruining plays. And so you love to see that. And you look, like I said, we start at linebacker, we go to defensive back. Now we're at defensive tackle. And you look throughout the commitment list, Ben, I'm not going to break down the numbers live on the pod, but I mean, they're just adding numbers at these positions, D-line, outside linebacker, defensive back. They're going to keep going after it, and it's pretty balanced. And so that's another kind of takeaway as we go through some of the commitment list, and especially the guys that they're adding now.
Yeah, 3 defensive tackles as part of the class: Jaden Cofield, Tredarius Brown, and now Braylon Rigsby. There were, a few years we were sitting up here begging for 1 defensive tackle. So it's good to see, those fortunes change. But yeah, like you said, I'm looking at it now. You got, 4 receivers, you got your running back, 4 linemen, 2 linebacker. Like, it's a very balanced class all the way through, and, they're not done yet. So, hard to have any complaints about this class.
No doubt. And then a couple more guys before we get into, what's left. Over the past week, this next guy we're going to talk about, I think, we could talk about for a while in terms of unique story. But again, going back to Dingle Jr., trusting your evals, getting in touch with these kids and just making it happen and building that trust, so much so to where, they commit and they're done with their recruitment. I talked to offensive tackle Nick Fattig out of League City earlier today, listed at 6'5", 280. Not only does this young man have several offers, not only Ivy League, right, big brain, but also UTSA and a few others. But it just seemed like another one where Blanchard had been in touch with them for a while. He checked a lot of these boxes, but forget all of that. He's the national champion in Olympic weightlifting, which is kind of nuts, right? He just described to me today that he's been doing it since his freshman year, and that he traveled to Las Vegas and competed with, the nation's best, power clean, all this stuff. And he's number one. So if I'm Jake Strong, that's kind of a guy I want protecting my blind side, or, playing right tackle, or really anywhere on the line for me. When I look at it, this is exactly the kid that the coaches were talking about when they're giving Sam Khan all that info on their recruiting and what they're looking for. And if he can't dunk a basketball, then we're probably not going to be looking at him. This is the same kid, if you guys are recalling, that Ben posted on the board, where he just was standing still, bends his knees, jumps up, and throws it down. And to have your offensive lineman with the strength to be national champion in Olympic weightlifting, but also athletic enough to stand there and dunk a basketball. I know we love to look at offer lists, rankings, stars, and all of that. Again, I just urge you guys, turn on the tape. I mean, this is the kind of kid you want in the trenches for your football team. I know you had a chance to talk to Nick a little bit before the visit, after the offer, and some of that. So I guess, what do you want to add about Nick, or what do you think about him, as a player or recruit?
Yeah, very physical. If you look at his film, he plays both guards, both tackles, so he's versatile. And I just think, I don't know if this is kind of if this is something people will be happy to hear or not, but you had right, coming out of Rivals camp, you had some O-line targets. You had like TJ Shanahan, right, who was a 5-star, and then you had Isaiah Robinson, who was a Rivals 250, who you were both, I don't know if you would have gotten those guys, but you were there. But as soon as the coaches kind of discovered this kid, the bets were off. This was their guy, and they targeted him, and made, that became obvious with his official visit and all that. And they're able to get his commitment. So that's just how good they think that Nick is. And it's interesting because, like you said, we like to look at offer lists, we like to look at all these things, and Rivals ranking, and he'll get his. I think the Texas analyst Nick Harris, he's put a ranking in. I don't know what it is. I don't know when it'll appear in the profile, but that's been done. It'll happen. But I mean, you gotta love this commitment, and the Olympic weightlifting, and all district, all state, all county, all that. So I mean, part of a 4-man O-line class so far, and then we'll see what happens next.
Definitely. I mean, I don't have much else to add. I mean, I've covered tech recruiting a long time, and I mean, when you get these guys that are like wrestling, or something, a lot of these O-line get thrown into shot put, discus, for a variety of reasons. But I mean, to be a national champion and be invited to travel to Las Vegas and do all that stuff, to be that good anyway, but then win, I think it says a lot. And when you go back to what we were talking about with Dingle Jr., I mean, these are kids that are clearly talented. They're clearly athletic. The coaches want to get them in there and coach them up, develop and really mold them into what they need, right? And so I think it's a win-win, best of both worlds, and really excited to see kind of how both, really, when I mentioned Dingle Jr. and Fatig, excited to see how their senior seasons unfold, because these are guys that, let's say Fatig gets a 2-star or a 5.5. I mean, I think these guys are going to put out some good tape. I think they're going to come out and have good years. And, again, at 23 commits now, we'll talk about one more. Another 3-star, it doesn't change the math, right? So it's not like one of these rankings things that we're talking about. It's just understanding the quality of the commitment and all these different intangibles that we talk about, whether it's the measurement that you mentioned, the track time, some of these other, accolades outside of football. I think that all matters. And then, you look at both Nick Fatig. I just mentioned he had the Ivy League offers. The last kid we're going to talk about is the latest commitment from yesterday, out of Arlington, Texas, Kelby Valseen, wide receiver, 6'2". He told me 190 when we talked tonight. We have him listed at 175. So he has a part-time job at Dairy Queen. So I don't doubt it, man. I mean, he might be putting on the pounds now that football season and all that's out. But I just think another really interesting story, just like Fatig, he's got all the Ivy League offers too. Took an official visit to Sanford, had that offer. So, I mean, even off the field, these are great kids. These are kids that are doing something positive. And you look at Kelby, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of wrote, hey, it was his first season playing football. Well, it was his first varsity football season. So in of itself, yes, very impressive. But what he explained to me tonight is that I think by now everybody's maybe read, if you listen to this podcast, you probably have, his older brother plays wide receiver at Oregon State. So I think they're 2-3 years apart. And their dad had gone to him, from his 8th to 9th grade year, middle school to high school, and said, I want you to take a year off football and just wait. It'll be there, when you're ready. I want you to rest your body, focus on basketball. And I'll write it in the story, but Kelby really thought his future was going to be on the hardwood. And I think that, once he did that for a couple years, played varsity ball, got those accolades, did the AAU thing, he only planned on taking the 1 year off. It ended up being 2 years off. So last year, as his junior year, he got back to football, and he got back to football in a big way, Ben. I mean, I skipped over the ranking. He lists 30 offers, 5.7 3-star, rivals top 100 kid in the state of Texas. So all around, impressive from, when we talk about what we look up on paper. But going back, his first varsity year, not only did he just kind of crush it, but he led the district as a receiver. He was first team all district. He does that in football, in basketball, and he also runs track. So you talk about like what the coaches look for. He checked a lot of those boxes. And then you add to the fact that he plays 7-on-7 with Jake Strong, with BJ Jordan, and a little segue to what we're going to be talking about in a minute. He plays with another target that he's now helping to recruit for Texas Tech. So I just think it made a lot of sense. And you and I have been talking about Kelby for a long time, Ben. Last thing I'll add is I asked him when he knew. He knew back when he visited in like late January, February, but he really, knowing that his older brother had gone through this process and just getting advice, from his parents and coaches, he just wanted to make sure and see other places. So he had a chance to do that. He took the official to Sanford. He took the official to Boston College. He's talked to a lot of different programs with 30 total offers. And he just said the coaching staff and the opportunity in Lubbock just really stood out to him. So I don't know, that was a lot, but there's just a lot to like about this commitment, just from a potential standpoint. I mean, 6'2", even if he's not 190, let's call it 185. I mean, that's another junior going into their senior year that's just going to continue to grow and get stronger and carry that momentum from an incredible first year into a senior year at Arlington Bowie.
Yeah, not too much to add. Like you mentioned, I like the multi-sport, first team all district in multiple sports. This was Emma Jones relationship, and Kelby is the 5th receiver of the class. You mentioned 7-on-7 with Jake Strong. Jake's dad, Dean, has been pounding the table for Kelby on the site for a couple months now. And so, it's good to see the quarterback get his wish here, with another target.
Yeah. And I mean, Coach Jones back like he never left. And it's kind of interesting to me, he's evaluating that wide receiver room. We'll see what shakes out, this season. There's always like, hey, what does the room look like going into the fall, what actually happens, and then who kind of showed you something going into that following year. But, we'll see. I think some of these younger guys are going to have a chance, honestly. And then, we'll see what they do in the portal or whatnot. I know we only have a little bit of time left, Ben, but quickly, another thing you've posted on the site is sort of what's left. Who are the remaining targets? Give us a rundown, because there's commitments going on everywhere. 23 total commitments. Again, if you're listening, it's not a 25 limit. 85 is the limit. So there's some maneuvering to do. Coaches can take above 25 per class. There's no limit there on a per annual basis. So we don't know how many more spots are left, but give us a couple names that maybe the listeners here can maybe keep track of.
Yeah, I would say Ansel Nador, defensive tackle out of Round Rock. I know we mentioned they have 3 committed. I still think they would take Ansel, who's visited a couple times. And, you mentioned today is his birthday, so, probably been a little hard to get a hold of. But
you were going to sing happy birthday to him on the podcast, right?
I will sing happy birthday to him if you really want me to.
No.
Jordan Sanford is a 4-star from Arlington Timberview. He's visited, I think, 3 times, took official visits. Oklahoma State and Washington are kind of the competition, and he's going to announce on August 4th, so a month from yesterday. So keep an eye on that one. I think Tech feels pretty good about their chances, now with Kelby Valseen recruiting him as well. So we'll see about that. Today, Anthony White, another athlete out of Abernathy, put out his top 5 in Texas Tech, made the list. He did not officially visit. I think he might be injured right now. I think he's going to be sitting out his senior year, but another, West Texas athlete, and, he visited Vanderbilt. So I believe they're up high on his list. And, just the final guy I wanted to mention is Jalen Lloyd, athlete from Nebraska, another track star. Wrote a story with him. And so I don't know if this is an athlete offer. Could that be receiver, defensive back? I just think this would be, if you don't get it, Jordan Sanford, maybe, you push more for Jalen Lloyd and try to get the speedster out of Nebraska.
Yep. The dominoes are absolutely falling. I don't know the number, but again, there were so many different commitments. I know just around the conference, what used to be like, hey, look at all the commits Tech has. I mean, that's still the case, but you're seeing a lot more catch up in terms of like what their class looks like and, what you can maybe see going into the fall. So when we reconnect, we'll have to talk about that, Ben. But for Ben Golan, I'm Matt Clare. This has been the Lubbock or Leave It podcast. Again, brought to you by Carnley Properties. Holler at Clayton Carnley. We'll put that info below. Energy Renovation Center, my boy Clayton Summerlin. Give him a holler. If you're smart, you'll do both those things, and we love you. You guys have a good one.